Yeah, good day, everyone. Welcome to this session of the mathematics class. So today the topic is on complex numbers. Okay, complex numbers. From the word complex, it sounds like it will be difficult, but it is actually very simple and not difficult. So ignore the complexity of the complex and just deal with numbers. So complex numbers are actually very simple. They are not complex. But what is it? Why is it called complex number is what I'm going to tell you guys now. So let's take a look at this example. What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2, isn't it? What is the square root of 7? The square root of 7, you can't get it as a whole number. It will be decimal, isn't it? So you can take your calculator and press square root of 7, and that should be 2.64575 etc, isn't it? As you can see on your calculator. So because these are decimal numbers and cannot be expressed as an whole number, then we say square root of 7 can be left this way, and that is what we call sorts. That instead of writing, because this is called, it is called the exact value. So this 2.647 is not an exact value, because most of the time, if you want to get it as an exact value, you must write 751311 as you see on your calculator. But for it to be an exact value, you must leave it as root 7. So if you are trying to write your final answer with root 7, you will write it as an approximately to be 2.65, isn't it? Which is not exact, an approximate value. So square root of 4 is equal to 2. This is an exact value. But square root of 7 is approximately 2.65, which is not an exact value. But square root of 7, if left this way, is an exact value. I hope you understand that. What is the difference? 2.65 squared. Like I said, it's an approximate value. 2.65 squared is equal to, squared is equal to 7.0225. You can see it is not equal to 7. But root 7 squared is equal to 7. You can see that. So this is an exact value. This is not an exact value. I hope this is understood. Now, for complex numbers, if, like I said earlier, the square root of 4 is equal to 2. But what is the square root of minus 4? If you take your calculator, then try to press square root of minus 4, you will be expecting to get minus 2, isn't it? This is not equal to minus 2. If you do this in a calculator, then you should get math error. Okay? Now, it is a math error means it does not exist and cannot be computed by the calculator. But mathematically, it can be computed. Okay? So it is called, that is what we call the complex number. Because it is complex. It is not a number that is a regular number, or let me say a rational number. Okay? Now, but I don't want to speak too much of English. I want to go into the main mathematical concept. So the square root of minus 4 cannot be computed with a calculator. But at times we can have expressions where we have to deal with the square root of negative numbers. And because this is very difficult, then we have to bring up in a concept of the complex number identity. What does that mean? So to solve this, we are going to write this as the square root of minus 1 times 4. That is, take the negative 2 to 1. So wherever you see minus, just multiply it. That is, take minus 1. When you have negative of a number, just take away minus 1 from that number and multiply by that number. For example, minus 4 is minus 1 times 4, minus 9 is minus 1 times 9, and so on. So if you take a look at this, the square root of minus 1 cannot be found, like we just did earlier. The square root of a negative number cannot be found. It will only give you mathematical error. So this is square root of 4, of course, is 2. Then square root of 1 still remains square root of 1. So instead of writing the square root of 1, then we represent it as I. Some textbook represent it as J. Okay, so this can be equal to 2I. So this is the complex number. That's I makes it a complex number. I hope this is understood. So now you can now understand that there is nothing complex about complex number. It is just the square root of a negative number that is termed the complex number. I hope this is well understood. So an example. So the square root of -9 can be written as the square root of -1 times 9. Of course, the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of -1 is square root of -1. It is represented as I. Are you all following? I hope you guys are following me. So this is called an imaginary number. Imaginary number. It's a number that is imagined. Okay. So that implies that I can have an expression, a complex number as z is equal to 2 plus 5i. Okay. 2 plus 5i, this 2 is called the real number. That is a real number, the one your calculator can do an expression on. Why? This is called the imaginary number. So both of them combined together becomes the complex number. Okay, this is just the normal. It's the operations on complex number is the same operations you guys have been doing. The normal addition, subtraction, multiplication. There is nothing different. Everything is still the same. Only that we're dealing with the square root of a negative number. That is just the difference. Let's take an example so that you can see that there is nothing special about complex number. Now, so let's solve this problem. Z squared minus 6z plus 58. So, it's difficult to use complete the square method. It's difficult to use factorization method to solve this problem. So let's use the formula method, which is very easy. So you know that the formula method z will be equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, in this expression, the value of b is equal to minus 6, the value of a is equal to 1, and the value of c is equal to 58. Then you substitute it into this expression. Okay, so z becomes minus b itself is minus 6 plus or minus square root of b itself is minus 6 squared minus 4. The value of a is 1, the value of c is 58. Okay, divided by 2a. The value of a is 1. So that means this is z is equal to minus becomes 6 plus or minus square root of 6 squared. Minus 6 squared is what? Is 36 minus 4 multiplied by 50 is let me do that on my calculator. So 232 over 2 times 1 is 2. So this will amount to, that becomes 6 plus or minus the square root of minus 196 over 2. Okay, so like I told you, when you see square root of a negative number, just take that as I. So this becomes 6 plus or minus root 196, then I, because of the negative, the square root of negative 1, then divided by 2. I hope this is well understood. So now this becomes z is equal to 6 plus or minus, so the square root of 196 is equal to 14. So this becomes 14i divided by 2. So this gives 6 divided by 2 is 3 plus or minus 14 divided by 2 is what? Is 7i. So that means the root of this equation is equal to 3 plus 7i or 3 minus 7i. So this is just complex number. I hope this is well understood. So see you on the next.